Jack's ranch is located in southern Texas, where vast grasslands stretch into oak and pine forests. Years ago, this was a relatively peaceful place, but over the past few seasons, signs of feral hogs have become increasingly common. They root through pastures, damage cultivated land, and frequently approach livestock areas under the cover of darkness. For ranchers like Jack, the priority is not simply acknowledging their presence, but understanding how they move across the landscape so that effective management strategies can be developed based on real observations, helping reduce damage while relying on accurate field data. Our morning began by preparing monitoring sites along the travel routes most frequently used by the feral hogs. Jack explained that choosing the right locations depends on fresh tracks, recently rooted soil, and well-established game trails rather than guesswork. As we worked, we carefully recorded the wind direction, terrain, and the distance to nearby water sources. These factors help explain why some areas consistently experience much heavier hog activity than others. Our first survey site was located in an open clearing within the forest. As soon as we arrived, tracks of many different sizes covered the ground, indicating that an entire sounder had passed through during the night. I stood quietly for several minutes, carefully observing before documenting the scene. What caught my attention most was not simply the number of tracks, but the presence of both large and small footprints. It revealed the structure of the group, and also helped explain how feral hog populations are able to expand their range so effectively. Leaving the forest behind, we continued to the second monitoring site. Unlike the previous location, this one showed very little recent activity. At first, I felt slightly disappointed because I had expected to collect more data, but Jack saw it differently. According to him, areas with few signs are just as valuable because they reveal that the hogs are changing their travel routes or favoring locations with more abundant food sources. Every result, whether extensive or limited, contributes to completing the bigger picture. By midday, we inspected another area near the edge of the forest. The sign suggested that numerous hogs had been using this corridor in recent days. Jack explained that identifying these high-activity zones allows ranch managers to prioritize the protection of the pastures and fields most vulnerable to damage. It is work that demands patience, because the smallest changes observed today may become clear long-term patterns after weeks of monitoring. As the afternoon wore on, we returned to another survey point after the monitoring system had recorded activity during the previous night. The new data added valuable information about the time of appearance and the travel direction of the sounder. Everything was carefully marked on the map for comparison with previous surveys. I realized that successful wildlife management is never the result of a single day's observations, but rather of continuous monitoring and systematic analysis over time. By the time we returned to the ranch, the Texas sky had faded into the soft orange glow of sunset. Jack opened the day's records and compared every observation with the ranch map. Later, everyone gathered around a simple dinner prepared with ingredients produced on the ranch, relaxing while discussing the survey plans for the days ahead. As the day came to an end, the most valuable outcome was not any single observation, but the deeper understanding we had gained about how feral hogs use the landscape. Those insights will help ranchers make more informed management decisions, reduce conflicts between agriculture and wildlife, and better protect the long-term sustainability of their ranches. But to capture an entire group of intelligent wild boars, old steel cages are no longer enough. We need a smarter strategy, a soft net trapping system called Pig Brig. The whole team moved immediately. Everyone had their role, working in perfect coordination. The heavy hammer strikes drove 7-foot steel stakes deep into the hard ground. The Pig Brig net was carefully suspended. Fermented corn bait was spread evenly from the outside toward the center. Sweat soaked through our protective clothing, but a perfect trap was finally ready. At a trap site near the forest edge, a large herd of boars had appeared. They were eagerly feeding on the fermented corn bait inside the net, completely unaware that they were already trapped. Outside, a few scout boars still stood back in the darkness, alert, watching, testing. They absolutely refused to step inside. The next morning, we drove to the site to inspect the overnight catch. Everything inside the trap became tense immediately. Every boar panicked and ran wildly the moment they saw human figures approaching. A full herd of wild boars of every size. Big ones, small ones. They charged continuously at the net walls. But it was useless. The Pig Brig net absorbed every impact. With no hard surface to push against, they quickly exhausted themselves, and everything was brought under control. The net trap had done its job perfectly. But the wild boars were still out there, and we could not allow ourselves to become careless. Noticing that the herd had started changing its travel route, I decided to establish a new trap point in an open grassy area between the forest and the farmland. During the first few days, we rolled the lower edge of the net upward. Bait was spread from the outside inward. This was the familiarization stage, allowing them to move freely in and out. When the camera reported back, an 80-pound scout boar stepped forward first. It sniffed around the net, carefully feeding outside the trap. The others stood farther away, watching. But eventually, the temptation of food won. Later, they finally pushed their snouts forward and slipped completely inside the net. The trap quietly closed without a single sound. Their survival instinct had been deceived by a design that felt too natural. The next morning, bright sunlight filled the sky. We approached the open field. The harsh sunlight made me squint, my chest pounding at the scene in front of me. Once again, chaos. A large herd of boars was desperately trying to escape. One huge boar, weighing no less than 120 pounds, pushed its front legs upward, trying to climb over the 7-foot net wall. Dust flew everywhere. They slammed continuously into the net walls. The entire area looked like it had been torn apart by pure panic. The following night, the clock showed nearly 9 p.m. The herd arrived. They pushed their snouts onto the net close to the ground, fighting each other to get inside and reach the bait, only to become trapped almost immediately. The principle of the trap is one way: easy to enter, impossible to leave. But suddenly, my heartbeat sped up. I cursed quietly under my breath. One boar entering had accidentally exposed a small opening, and another immediately slipped backward and escaped. It happened in an instant. Nature always finds a way to punish the smallest mistakes, forcing us to be even more careful with every detail of the setup. The hardest mission waited at the final trap point. Last year, this entire area had been completely destroyed by wild boars. Not even a blade of grass remained. We patiently waited several more days for the boars to grow familiar with the presence of the net. When we finally saw signs that they had started entering the trap to feed, I lowered the net, but intentionally left a tiny part of the entrance slightly open. A psychological trap designed to lure the most stubborn ones deeper inside. The result finally came. After a long period of monitoring, we successfully captured a massive male boar weighing around 140 pounds. And when dawn arrived, my breathing grew heavier with every step forward. Inside the net, the giant male boar and its herd were crowded together in complete chaos, desperately trying to break free. They slammed into every corner, turned in circles, bit wildly at everything around them. The entire steel stake system shook violently under the force of their power. But every escape attempt became hopeless. The confinement had been established completely. Controlling wild boars is not about fighting muscle with muscle. It is a game of patience, reading tracks, and understanding animal behavior. When that knowledge is combined with smart tools, we do not just protect the farmer's property. We complete the mission safely, professionally, and responsibly. It all began in a cornfield located right at the edge of the forest. For weeks, the landowner kept finding rows of corn destroyed every night. The evidence clearly pointed to wild boars as the culprit. A trap was set directly along their usual travel route. After placing bait and testing the trigger system, everything was left to the night. As the sun went down, the area fell into silence. The camera kept recording for hours, and at some point during the night, the trap was finally triggered. The next morning, when we returned to the site, the result was clear. A successful harvest, enough to satisfy anyone. But we quickly realized this was only the beginning. If the cornfield already showed significant boar activity, the next location was far larger. And for that reason, expectations were even higher. Unlike the previous site, this was a vast wheat field stretching almost to the horizon. The open landscape made it much harder to identify exact movement routes. The team had to survey multiple areas before choosing the right position. Fresh tracks in the soft soil confirmed that the herd still returned regularly. The trap was placed at the most heavily damaged zone. Then came the familiar waiting period. One night passed. And then dawn arrived. When the team returned, the result was far greater than before. Clearly, many more wild boars have been caught this time. It already felt like the biggest result so far. But the next location told an entirely different story. Wide open fields always attract wild boars searching for food. However, the places where they feel safest are often deep inside the forest. And that is where the Real Challenge begins. Hidden beneath dense trees is a network of trails used by wild boars for years. Bringing equipment into this area is far more difficult than in farmland zones. Limited visibility, rough terrain, and almost no clear indication of how many animals are present. The trap was built in a small clearing inside the forest. Then the team left. When night fell, the camera began capturing the first movements. At first, only a few cautious individuals appeared around the site, but gradually, more and more arrived. By the next morning, the result was astonishing. The trap was nearly full. The number of wild boars far exceeded all initial estimates. It became one of the largest captures ever recorded in the area. But what was even more surprising, there was still one more location that would shock everyone. After witnessing the deep forest results, we believed it would be hard to see anything bigger, until a farm contacted us. At first glance, the location seemed ordinary. A barn, an open yard, and surrounding farmland. But once night fell, the area turned into a gathering point for an unbelievable number of wild boars. Signs of damage appeared more and more frequently. Farm owners knew they had to act before things got worse. A large trap was deployed near the barn. After days of preparation, the critical moment finally arrived. Camera footage showed an almost unbelievable number of animals entering the area. Groups kept moving into the trap zone one after another. Then the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. The trigger system activated. The gate closed. When the team arrived the next morning, everyone paused for a moment in silence. This was the largest capture of the entire journey, a result even the most experienced could hardly have predicted. From a quiet cornfield, to vast wheat fields, to deep forests, and finally a surprising farm. Each location revealed the remarkable adaptability of wild boars, and reminded us that sometimes the biggest surprises appear where least expected. And out there, many more traps are still waiting to be checked, and perhaps the next surprise will be even greater.